All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and I finally have some time to do a little catching up. We still have a few more videos that I need to catch up on as well, but today we're here to talk about the Washington Commanders signing defensive lineman Eddie Goldman. Of course, this was a few days ago, but I want to break down, first of all, the fact that he's DC's own super duper DC. Also, I want to break down how he'll make Johnny Newton better, and how much of a run stuffer he is, how much of a double team eater he will be for us, and everything, and why I'm definitely projecting him to not only make the final 53-man roster, which is more than you can say for a few of these other guys that we've signed the past week and a half, but I also feel like he's going to be a pretty important part of the rotation. We're going to dive into all of that and more. And of course, I have a trivia question for you. What special teams ace earned a Pro Bowl berth when he posted a team leading 16 tackles on kickoff coverage for the Commanders in 2022? Again, another 2022 question. I feel like this answer is pretty easy, but either way, I'm gonna give it to you at the end of the video. And before we get into everything, make sure you still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, and still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for supporting every video, pulling up, leaving likes, comments, and everything. I appreciate all the compliments. Shouts out to everybody donating to the CashApp as well. I am working on scheduling a live stream for y'all, hopefully somewhat soon, so stay tuned for that. Without further ado, let's go and dive into the video, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so all the way back on March 12th, literally today, last week, the Commanders signed defensive lineman Eddie Goldman to a one-year deal. Shouts out to Sam 48 for pointing out the fact that the Commanders added another big veteran rotational interior defensive lineman. We've added a lot of those this offseason. The defensive line has gotten the most attention, at least quantity-wise. Maybe not necessarily quality, but quantity-wise, defensive line has received the most attention easily, probably by far, out of any other position group by Adam Peters and Dan Quinn so far this offseason. Also, Goldman is 31 years old. He's not that old, but we're going to talk about why, 31 is a little old when you do the things that he does. We're going to get to that soon. But he's listed at 6'3", 325 pounds. Again, continuing the trend that no matter what, this offseason, Adam Peters and Dan Quinn were going to get these trenches bigger, stronger, and hopefully better. I mean, at least when it comes to stopping the run, we definitely have that checked off. Like I was saying well before free agency even started, I kept saying that, especially knowing that Jonathan Allen's going to get cut or traded or whatever, I was saying that we need a true defensive tackle that if anything can play zero tech nose tackle type of stuff. We need a true double team, middle of the defensive line space eater. Like a 320-pound plus type of guy. Not a Jonathan Allen who's 280. We needed a guy that can truly eat up double teams and allow all of the other defensive linemen around him to see more one-on-one opportunities, and then they can feast upon that. And Goldman is that guy. I thought that we would maybe wait, because this is arguably the deepest defensive tackle class we've seen in a draft class in a while, in years. And so I thought that maybe we'll try to snag one of those, maybe with our 4th round pick, maybe with a 6th round pick or something like that, because the class is so deep. Daniel Jeremiah said that he had 24 gradable starters at defensive tackle alone in this draft class. I wouldn't necessarily go that far, but my point was we could have just waited to the draft to do this. So the fact that they went ahead and snagged this guy in free agency, first of all, shows that, again, going into the draft, they want to make sure they have zero needs. We're going to have a lot of different position groups and things we specifically want to upgrade, but we don't have any exact holes on the roster. They wanted to make sure, when in doubt, before we get to this draft, we have a nose tackle that can play. Is he a premier top line nose tackle, top flight security type of nose tackle? Not necessarily, but he's decent. He's good. We're going to dive into how good he is and everything like that, but he's playable. That's most important. We have a guy that can, when we need to, go out there and stop the run at nose tackle, which, again, we're going to dive into it a little bit more later, but that would allow Johnny Newton and Daron Payne to see more one-on-ones and do what they do best, which is penetrating, rather than having to take on double teams themselves like they had to do at times last year, which is why they were far less effective. But Going back to Goldman, 6'3", 325 pounds, he played in 17 games last season with 10 starts. We're going to talk about the whole retiring on and off thing. We're going to get there soon, which is why I was like, yeah, that 31 years old is pretty interesting in his case. But he still has a lot of football left in him if he really wants to have it. But this is a guy, I really wanted to emphasize the fact that he played 17 games last year. Technically only started 10, but as a nose tackle, you're typically not going to start all 17 games in a season because there are some games strategically your defensive coordinator may be like, we don't necessarily need you to play that much because this is not a great run game offense that we may be going against this upcoming week. And maybe we don't necessarily need to focus on having a nose tackle on the field so that we can stop the run up the A and B gaps. Maybe this team prefers to run to the outside. Maybe this team is more so pass happy. That's why Eddie Goldman probably gets schemed out of certain situations in games where some games he's much more of a priority, some games he's not. For the Falcons, for who they were going against, I guess throughout this season, they felt like there were maybe like 7 games where he didn't need to be out there immediately or playing a lot of snaps. I'm pretty sure he's going to play more for us than he played for the Falcons last year. I can go ahead and tell you that now. With all of the running backs that we just have in our division alone, let alone all of the running backs that we're probably going to face throughout the regular season and especially in the playoffs, Eddie Goldman, if he doesn't retire, I think he'll be able to contribute a lot to this team. I think y'all will grow to really like this signing. By the time we get to like October, y'all are going to be like, man, thank goodness we have this guy. I'm telling you right now. Also, Sam Fortier pointed out the fact that he's from DC and played high school football with Yannick Ngakoue and Tease Tabor at Friendship. So just to give y'all that heads up. Now to do like a quick deep dive into his background. Of course, he's going to compete for a role in a defensive tackle rotation. This is not a guy that's like a fringe. Maybe he makes the roster, maybe he doesn't. This is just a 90-man roster guy. Like some of these signings I have acknowledged, some of these breakdowns that I've done of some of these guys that we've signed the last week and a half, I've thrown out there the question, is this guy even going to make the final 53-man roster? This guy, I'm very confident he will, unless he decides he doesn't want to. Again, with the whole retirement thing, we're going to get there soon. But again, 31 years old, a former second-round pick of the Bears back in 2015. He was entering the final year of his 4-year, $5.686 million contract when he agreed to a 4-year contract extension with Chicago worth over $42 million, including $25 million guaranteed. Like, the Chicago Bears team and even their fans, if you go look on Twitter, they really like this guy. And then he was entering the 3rd year of his deal and set to earn a salary of $8.76 million when Chicago released him out of nowhere. He had visited with the Ravens, but the two sides never reached an agreement. He then signed a 1-year deal with the Falcons, but retired less than 2 weeks later, missing the entire 2022 season. And then in March of 2023, Eddie Goldman was reinstated by the Falcons, but was placed on the reserve left squad list in July. He unretired again in 2024 and then was re-signed by the Falcons. In 2024, Goldman appeared in all 17 games for the Falcons and recorded 16 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 sack. Not very impressive numbers, but typically a nose tackle, unless you're like a future Hall of Famer at the position, which is pretty rare, you're usually not going to have a lot of box stats. Your purpose of being on the field is to make everybody else around you better. It's going to keep the linebackers clean. So Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, and Jordan McGee will be able to get their stats up because they're going to be kept clean from offensive linemen more often, and then they will be just left wide open to go make tackles against the running back. And then same thing even with his partners in crime next to him, Johnny Newton and Deron Payne, and even like a Javon Kinlaw will be able to make more plays and get their stats up. And they will improve, at least production-wise, just simply because Eddie Goldman is on the field. I mean, if you like super duper gamer, just consider Eddie Goldman the mage on the battlefield that gives everybody buffs or something like that. I don't know how else to describe it, man. When he's on the field, Johnny Newton goes from like I would argue he played like maybe a 79 overall last year to probably going to play at least like an 86 overall. Like, he literally makes everybody look that much better with the fact that he's going to demand attention from the center and one of the other guards more times than not when he's on the field, which again, Johnny Newton, Deron Payne, they only have so many offensive linemen on the field. And then you also have the 2 edge rushers on the outside. All of those guys are pretty much going to see one-on-ones in those situations. The only problem is he doesn't give you much pass rush upside. Again, he only had 1 sack last season. And even when he was in his prime, even when he was at his peak for the Chicago Bears, he was never known as a sack master. But hey man, he's here to help the other guys get their sacks. So I'm perfectly fine with that. And again, this is just a strong indication that they are not playing about stopping the run. Pretty much every defensive line signing they've made so far this offseason was a run stopper. Jacob Martin offers you some pass rush upside. And again, you have Dorrance Armstrong, who you signed last year, that maybe has some pass rush upside. We'll see. He showed flashes, especially in the playoffs. If we can get playoff version of Dorrance Armstrong throughout the course of an entire season, we may be good at least with one edge rusher rushing the quarterback wise. But we lost Dante Fowler, and then maybe you hope 7th round pick from last year's draft, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, can step up and become a good pass rusher. Everybody else in the group, especially edge rusher wise, are pure run stoppers. Now, Javon Kinlaw does have some explosion to him, even though I predict him to play more defensive tackle snaps than edge rusher, even though I do predict that he will play a lot of both. So edge rusher wise purely, we have a bunch of edge setters, run stoppers, which we did not have really any of last year. Cleveland Farrell was supposed to be one of those guys, but he stayed hurt. And then that's why Dante Fowler had to play way more snaps than expected, because Dante Fowler is supposed to be a 3rd and long only type of guy, but we kept getting into situations where, I mean, Cleveland Farrell hurt, nobody else stepping up. Well, Dante Fowler, we need you on 1st and 2nd down along with 3rd down as well. And so now we've gone from a couple of good pass rushers, no run stuffers, to a bunch of really good run stuffers and very little pass rushing. But at the very least though, especially with Kinlaw and Goldman, we are clearly not playing about stopping the run this year. That's going to be one thing you don't have to worry about with this defense, man. And again, shouts out to Javon Kinlaw. He's from DC. Eddie Goldman's from DC. So I always like those type of stories, people playing for the teams that they grew up watching and loving. Now, again, this is your nose tackle. And we needed one of these bad last season. Like, we really missed a John Ridgeway type of presence. That's what Eddie Goldman brings you. This is your nose tackle that will be the catalyst to our run defense being way better than what it was last year. Because if we're going to be able to do anything this year, after these signings that we've done, we're going to be able to stop the run. Again, we may be worse at getting after the quarterback right now, but ain't no way we're going to be as bad as stopping the run last year, this year. I can bet that. We're going to go from dead last, and I'm easily predicting us to be top 10 run stopping wise as a defense as a whole. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're top 5. Like, they've done that much. Okay, we have this many dominant, at least good, minimum good run stoppers. We just got to figure out the pass rush part, but that's unrelated to Eddie Goldman. That's not his department. That's not what he was signed here to do. So we're going to kind of move on from that and kind of ignore that part of the defensive line for this video specifically, even though I'm going to bring it up every other time that I can when we're talking about defensive line. But Eddie Goldman wise specifically, we're here to stop the run. That's why he was signed. And when I say I predict Eddie to be our starting nose tackle, again, he's a nose tackle. Like I already explained earlier, the nature of a nose tackle, you're not expecting that guy to be on the field a lot. First of all, they're huge, and they're typically not going to have as much stamina. I mean, you know, I love my Georgia Bulldog, Jordan Davis, that's over there playing for the Eagles. He doesn't play very much. When he's in the game, he's very effective. He really matters, but he doesn't play very often. He's more of a nose tackle type of guy. Nose tackles just aren't on the field like a typical starter at any other position that plays football. Like, even our best nose tackle, even like a Pro Bowl nose tackle, probably will only be on the field for like maybe 30-40% of snaps or less. I mean, just like obvious run situations, tush pushes, like this is your anti-tush push guy right here as well. You're hoping. And with him being our nose tackle and basically a more experienced version of John Ridgeway, that means that Johnny Newton and Daron Payne will see way less double teams when Eddie is on the field with them in between them. Because Eddie will be the one getting all of the double teams. The center and the guard will focus on stopping Eddie because he's huge and trying to move him out of the way so that the running back can get to the A gap or the B gap. Eddie Goldman's going to say, nope, you're not coming here. And then now Johnny Newton and Daron Payne, I mean, you drafted Johnny Newton nearly at the end of the first round, but a very high second round pick. Daron Payne is your highest paid player right now. I'm expecting those guys to be able to at least beat one-on-ones. I know they're not great against double teams. Eddie Goldman comes here. He makes it so you have to face those way less often. I'm expecting y'all to be one-on-ones. Y'all can't be one-on-ones. There's no hope for y'all. If Eddie Goldman can help Johnny Newton and Daron Payne succeed at this point, I don't know what to tell you, especially Daron Payne wise, because you know better. You too old for that. Johnny Newton, he missed his entire rookie offseason. We'll see what happens after he finally officially gets like a full summer to get ready for a regular season and postseason. But Deron Payne, it ain't no excuses for you, man. Eddie Goldman is the exact guy that you've wanted next to you for a long time now. I'm expecting great things in the real final year of your deal, because this is your last year with guaranteed money. By the time we get to 2026, they may Jonathan Allen you, where since you don't have any guaranteed money, they could just go ahead and cut or trade you and save a lot of cap space. Would not be surprised if we do Deron Payne next year the same way we did Jonathan Allen this year. So essentially, even though you technically have 2 years left in your contract, this is your real last year to show the Commanders, who are Super Bowl contenders, this is what you want to be a part of, why you deserve to stay here. So shouts out to Eddie Goldman, man. He should help you a lot, but at the same time, he's going to put a big bright light on you, because it's like if Deron Payne can't succeed with Eddie Goldman next to him, then when can he? And so that also takes me to the point of Eddie Goldman being a really good signing for us. Just off of the expectations that we now have for Johnny Newton and Deron Payne, just from Eddie Goldman being signed, it lets you know that this is a pretty good signing. He should help us, not only just himself by stopping the run, but also helping other guys as well. And then again, he's only 31 years old. He's entering year 8. 6'4", 325 pounds. Shouts out to Grant Paulson for this. He opted out of the NFL for COVID year. Then he retired in 2022 and didn't play for 2 years. Then he was back in the NFL last year with Atlanta. Again, 10 starts, 17 games, played the entire season. Maybe he's not on the verge of retiring again. Maybe he loves football again. I don't know. And now that I've mentioned it twice already in this video, I really do not want people to just ignore the fact that this guy has retired from the NFL for a couple of seasons. I do not want that to go over y'all's heads. I really like this guy. I'm very excited about this signing, but I do not want y'all to ignore the fact that this guy has basically quit on football 2 different situations and has missed multiple years of football. But again, most recently, last season for the Falcons, he played every single game. He's durable as long as he's not quitting on football. I don't have a feeling that he's quitting on football. I'm pretty sure Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, and Joey Jr., all of these guys did all of their homework. Daryl Tapp did everything that they could to get background information on this guy, and then also talk to him man to man before he put pen to paper, or even before they even offered him money. Are you committed to playing this season? Because we don't have time to waste, man. We're trying to go win a Super Bowl this year. We just went to the NFC Championship last year. It's arguably at least go to the Super Bowl or bust this year for the Commanders. We don't have time to be playing around with a guy that's fickle on whether or not he wants to play football. So I'm pretty sure they did their background check on him. I'm pretty sure that he's committed just off of the fact that we signed him and the fact that Adam Peters even gave it the green light. And that's, again, especially with the fact that there were so many quality nose tackle draft prospects coming up in this draft. For them to go get Eddie Goldman before then, they must be pretty confident that he can be the guy this entire regular season and postseason run that we're about to go on, because you easily could have just gotten a younger version of Eddie Goldman in the draft. But I understand you want to use those draft picks for other positions that weren't necessarily available in free agency. I get it. Now going back to the DC part, this is DMV zone, DC zone, Eddie Goldman. Like super duper DC, born and raised. Javon Kinlaw was born and raised in DC, but eventually moved to South Carolina. But this guy, Eddie Goldman, born and raised DC the entire time, man. And maybe there's something to the fact that we're adding a bunch of DC born and raised guys to our trenches. We'll see how this goes. I'm excited. And also shouts out to Rich Manuel, because he even tweeted, I remember with ESPN years ago giving national coverage to a friendship collegiate game largely because of Goldman. He was with the Commanders director of pro scouting, Chris White, in Chicago as well. So there's that connection. And also, if you, just in case, especially if y'all are from the DMV area, if you remember when Eddie Goldman was in high school, Friendship was getting national coverage being shown by ESPN for one of their games, and Eddie Goldman was one of the main reasons for that. So he's been a really good player since high school. He went to college, was very productive. Now I'm gonna talk about it soon as to why, like, he ended up getting drafted late. He didn't perform very well at the combine, but he's a guy that he's pretty much been good all the way since high school. And then he got to the NFL and quit on football a couple of times. But this guy has had some really good seasons. Like Pro Football Focus wise, they felt like he deserved an 87.3 Pro Football Focus grade in 2018. You can argue that was his best season, arguably by far, with an 87.8 run defense grade. Now, of course, it's a big if you can get 2018, long time ago, 7 years ago, version of Eddie Goldman in 2025, somehow, that 87.3 overall grade would have been ranked the 4th best interior defensive lineman out of the entire NFL in 2024. We're talking about only behind Chris Jones, Cameron Hayward, and Dexter Lawrence. We're talking about higher than Leonard Williams. We're talking about over Poona Ford, Calais Campbell, DeForest Buckner, Jeffrey Simmons, Alam McNeil, Zach Saylor, John Franklin Myers, Taylor Tart, Grover Stewart, Milton Williams, Tavondre Sweat, Kobe Turner, Vita Vea, Jalen Carter, my boy, Ed Oliver, Jordan Davis, Jerron Reed, all of these guys, Sebastian Joseph Day, BJ Hill, just to name a few, Quinnen Williams. He would have been better. O.C. Odigizua, who I wanted in free agency, but ended up never even entering free agency, re-signing with the Cowboys. But we're talking about a guy that when he was at his best was arguably better than most of those names I just gave you, at least in one season. Like, I mean, you could argue maybe it was lightning in a bottle for the guy, but I mean, over the course, until he started retiring, up till the 2020 COVID year, he had a 70.4 overall grade. 2016, 75.9. Next year, 65.2. Then the next year, he had that 87.3. And then 2019, he had a 70.7. That's still not bad on one of his average, or you could argue down years before he retired the first time, before he quit football the first time. He would have been still ranked the 21st best defensive tackle in all of football. Again, over the guys like BJ Hill, Sebastian Joseph Day, Quinnen Williams, Osa Odigizua, DJ Jones, DJ Reader, Devontae Wyatt, a lot of these guys that we do really like. And again, that was arguably a down year for him, but that was before he started to quit football multiple times. So then, after quitting football and returning the first time, 2021, he had his worst grade by far, 39.8. I truly believe that's because he just came back out of shape. But then in 2024, he had a 49.3 grade. Still bad, right below average, but it was an improvement from where he was in 2021. Maybe this is a guy that's just now getting back into real football shape. Maybe the entire last season, 2024, 2021, he just never was able to get back to his true form and self, like athleticism, body-wise, and stamina and things like that. Maybe he can get back to that with us. I'm not expecting him to be his 2018 self again, arguably the 4th best defensive tackle in all of football type of stuff, but I am at least expecting him to be better than what he was in 2024. I'm hoping we could get him somewhere in the middle, between that 87.3 grade and that 49.3. If he could be somewhere in the 70s, especially with the money that we're paying him on this very cheap 1-year deal, then this is an A+ signing in the offseason. Because again, not only will he be a really good player for us, he's going to make everybody around him better. Remember, the mage buffs. And again, I mean, like I keep explaining, and I'm giving you the glass half full view of like a lot of the guys that we've brought in this offseason. How do you feel about our coaching staff compared to other coaching staffs around the NFL? Do you believe that our coaching staff with Daryl Tapp and Dan Quinn, Joe Jr., and all of these guys can get more out of Eddie Goldman than the Falcons defensive coaching staff can? I do. So I just feel like that at the very least, because of our coaching and even just the personnel around him, I feel like he'll be able to play better for us than he did with the Falcons. But I think it's more so just his body getting back into real NFL shape more than anything else. So we'll see how this goes. I just have a bunch of reasons as to feel why I think he will be better in 2025 than he was in 2024. I feel like significantly better, to the point that, again, by October, y'all are going to be happy that we signed this guy. And then also, Chicago Bears fans and analysts were saying things like this before Eddie retired for the first time, and with film to back it up on Twitter, as you can see on the screen right now. This is a Bears fan saying, Eddie Goldman will be a household name in his 5th year. In my opinion, the most underrated player on this star-studded Bears defense with tons of potential. Keep an eye out for more things like this in 2019 from Eddie. Again, we're going all the way back to 2019. And remember, his best season was 2018. So that's why that Bears fan tweeted that July of 2019 with high expectations for him going into the 2019 season. It's understandable. But look how he eats up double teams. Just in case you don't believe me, this guy has some talent to him. He's over the right guard when you're watching this clip. I mean, come on, dog. Come on, man. We need a bunch of this You see how he ate up a double team to do that? Those were 2 offensive linemen trying to block him, and that's what he did with it. And then that's why the edge rushers have one-on-ones, and then even one of the linebackers was able to come in free, barely touched because of this. That's the Eddie Goldman effect right there. And I can tell you right now, nobody on your defensive line could have done that last year. John Ridgeway was the last player that could do that consistently for us. But we traded him away for a 6th round pick, which was eventually, I believe, used in the Marshawn Lattimore trade, I think, which is pretty interesting. But again, if you miss John Ridgeway, now you have Eddie Goldman. But so as of today, our starting defensive line, to me, looks like maybe Javon Kinlaw, Dorrance Armstrong, Deron Payne. And those are like your guaranteed 3 that's going to be out there the most, right? And then I feel like you're going to rotate Johnny Newton in on more so passing downs and Eddie Goldman more so on run downs. But if it's like 50-50, we're not sure if they're going to pass or run. I think they're more than likely going to throw Johnny Newton out there more than they would throw Eddie Goldman. But when it's an obvious passing down, Johnny Newton's obviously out there. If it's an obvious running down and it's like a tush push, 4th and 1, whatever, Eddie Goldman's out there. And yes, I'm still looking for an elite edge rusher right now. So please go and take one 29th overall in the draft. I'm really hoping one of those really talented guys falls for whatever red flags they have, because a lot of them do have some sort of a red flag, whether it's injury, lack of production, lack of focus, in James Pierce's case and things like that. I'm gonna dive into him in another video very soon. So I still feel like we need a pass rushing edge rusher really bad. But when it comes to stopping the run, Eddie Goldman just took us to new heights. I mean, him alone would make us much better going from 2024 to 2025. But then you also added a bunch of edge rushers that can stop the run as well, along with the other defensive tackles. I think we're good to go. And then shouts out to MV Scouting, because after we signed Eddie Goldman, he went and watched his all 22 tape like I did, and then he immediately tweeted a sentence I never thought I would say for whatever reason. But Eddie Goldman still has some juice. And I thought I felt the same way when watching his tape. He may never get back to his 2018 self, but at the very least, I think he'll be better than what he was in 2024 for us. I really do. I truly, after watching some tape on him with the Falcons last year, I think he still got it. He may not have it as often as he used to, but he's going to eat some double teams and, again, most importantly, make everybody around him better. And then MV Scouting also said, went and expected him to be completely unplayable, to be honest. But for a dude that hasn't played a lot of ball in 2 years, I was pretty surprised. Exclusively at a nose, but much closer to playable than I expected when watching his tape. I agree. Now, maybe it's just him taking more than a year to get his body back into NFL shape after taking a couple of years away from the game, and maybe that explains the poor season again that he had with the Falcons. But I agree with MV Scouting. When you watch his tape from last season with the Falcons, you see some flashes that you just don't expect to see from a guy that, first of all, graded that poorly in 2024, but also a guy that retired from football twice, quit on football twice. Of course, it's not an every down thing at all. Again, he's a pure nose tackle, but maybe Dan Quinn and his coaching staff can get it out of him more often and get him closer to his 2018 self than his 2024 self than the Falcons were able to do. Because again, going back to my question, do you not trust this coaching staff more than you trust the Falcons defensive coaching staff? Now, of course, I'm dangerously optimistic viewing it this way, but I'm just throwing it out there. You got to remember that this team is the team that went from 4 wins to 14 in one offseason. I'm not putting money on Eddie to end up a free agency still or anything like that. But most importantly, I'm also not going to pass it off like it's impossible. I'm not just going to ignore this signing. Is it just some guy that we just signed and we're not going to see him on Sundays much? No, he's going to play on Sundays. He's going to have a heavy impact. I'm telling you right now. If Johnny Newton suddenly turns into what we believed he will be, I think a lot of that will be just because Johnny Newton got better. He worked his tail off in the offseason and things like that. I also feel like Eddie Goldman will probably deserve a lot of that credit, especially when on the field at the same time. And also, man, you know he's got to have something to him, like some real type of talent and potential for 3 teams. Chicago after he retired in 2020, Atlanta after he retired in 2022 through 2023, and now us to keep giving this guy chances. Like, there clearly has to be something there that the previous teams thought, I mean, we could get something out of him. But of course they didn't technically, but maybe we are the ones that do it. Because again, not likely, but also not impossible. And also, again, at the very least, most realistic case scenario is like a base of what I expect from this guy is for him to be at least a guy that improves our run defense significantly from what it was last year at the very least. And worst case scenario, he should be an upgrade over the defensive tackles that we threw out there other than Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, and Johnny Newton. I feel like as far as depth goes, I feel like at the very least he should be better than what we were throwing out there last year once Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, and Johnny Newton weren't on the field, especially Jonathan Allen once he got hurt. And remember, before he retired the first time, he was graded higher than all of our defensive tackles by almost an entire 20 points in Pro Football Focus grade last year. That's including Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, and Johnny Newton. So if you're talking about any defensive lineman that we currently have on roster, who was the best when they were at their best? Eddie Goldman was the best defensive tackle we've had. If we could get the best season from any defensive lineman that we have on our roster right now, Eddie Goldman would be your best defensive lineman right now. As crazy as it sounds. And if there's one reason to be optimistic about him, is that he was significantly better again in 2024 after his second retirement than he was in 2021 after his first retirement. So maybe going back to my earlier point, he just needs some time to get back to his old self. He's on a positive trajectory from since the first time he retired. And again, the vast majority of the optimism that I have for these signings and trades that we're doing comes from my trust in this coaching staff and Adam Peters' eye for talent and team building, especially after what we achieved last year, which exceeded everybody's wildest expectations for us. Why stop now? But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if everything discussed in the video. Please still farm that like button, still farm the subscription button, still farm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned, follow the content. I really appreciate y'all. If you made it this far in the video, I salute you. You are the GOAT. And of course, to answer your trivia question, even though this one was a little bit easier than normal, the answer was Jeremy Reeves, just in case if y'all were wondering. Really appreciate y'all, man. Of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about Eddie Goldman. Have y'all actually sat down and watched some tape on this guy, especially most recently of 2024? It'd be nice to go back and look at the 2018 tape and get all excited, but let's try to keep it ourselves grounded. Just go look at this 2024 tape if you haven't just yet. I'm telling you, he's a little bit better than you think, and again, for the reasons I've already explained, I think he'll be better for us than he was for the Falcons last year. So let me know if you agree that he's going to make guys around him better. Let me know if you agree that he's the best nose tackle, double team eater, run stopping defensive tackle we've had since John Ridgeway left. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video, of course, and I really appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all leave a like on the way out. I'm gonna try my best to read and reply to as many comments as possible, but I'm all over the place. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.